Amelia Island celebrates Fish to Fork on May 15th to 18th, 2025 at Omni Amelia Island Resort and Spa, featuring fishing and culinary dock-to-dish specialties in a fun, interactive atmosphere. More info at ameliaisland.com/fish-to-fork. The North Florida TPO is committed to shaping our transportation future. We're focused on planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, connected community. Learn more at northfloridatpo.com. Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjacks.com.
This is WJCT News 89.9 Jacksonville. Up next, national and local news from NPR and the WJCT News team.
Good morning, I'm Ann Schindler. On today's First Coast Connect, from a fight over local immigration law to the uncertainty created by federal tariffs, we ask Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan about the latest headlines and take your calls and questions. Then, an award-winning documentary exploring the generational trauma experienced by the children of Holocaust survivors. We welcome the film's creator ahead of a local screening. And transforming industrial spaces into public art. Two organizers of Phoenix Art District's Spring Mural Jam preview the live painting event. Join the conversation. Give us a call at 904-549-2937 or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. It's all ahead this hour after the day's news.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. Stock markets are regaining a lot of ground lost in yesterday's huge sell-off. In pre-market trading, Dow Jones futures are up 1,000 points. Investors have been worried about President Trump's new tariffs. The European Union saw U.S. levies on its aluminum and steel go up last month. Fresh U.S. tariffs take effect tomorrow. Terry Schultz reports the EU is finalizing retaliatory measures.
The EU insists it would rather negotiate than retaliate and has offered to completely eliminate tariffs for U.S. cars and all industrial goods if Washington does the same. But with no sign the White House will agree, EU Trade Commissioner Maros Šefčovič says the bloc must go ahead with its own measures.
We are prepared to use every tool in our trade defense arsenal to protect EU single market, EU producers, and EU consumers.
The first round of EU counter tariffs is expected to include a wide range of items from dental floss to meat, but bourbon has reportedly been dropped from the list under heavy U.S. pressure. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled the Trump administration can continue to deport people using a wartime power. It is called the Alien Enemies Act. It gives the president power to deport people very rapidly, as NPR's Jasmine Garst reports.
So the Supreme Court backed the Trump administration. In other words, it gave it the green light to continue using the act in order to rapidly deport alleged gang members. But it also made clear that officials must give migrants adequate notice that they're being removed under the Alien Enemies Act so that they have time to challenge it.
NPR's Jasmine Garst reporting. In a separate case, Chief Justice John Roberts temporarily paused a lower court's order. It had demanded that the Trump administration bring back a man wrongly deported to El Salvador. The temporary hold will allow the Supreme Court time to review the case. The Trump administration is continuing to downsize the government. Some federal agencies are giving employees a choice: resign with pay and benefits through September or risk being fired later. NPR's Andrea Hsu reports the deadlines for federal employees to make that decision are approaching.
Tens of thousands of federal employees accepted the original deferred resignation offer back in late January, but far more were leery, unsure of what they were agreeing to or if the government would honor the terms. While not all of those concerns have been resolved, many more workers are considering the deal this time, now that agencies have announced mass layoffs ahead. The problem is, at most agencies, there's little information about who or what will be cut, and in most cases, employees have only been given a week or two to make their decision. With fears of an economic recession growing, many federal employees wonder how long it might take them to find a new job. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
You're listening to WJCT News 89.9 in Jacksonville. Good morning. I'm Stephen Ponson. It's 9:04. Private college and university leaders are worried about potential cuts in the state's Effective Access to Student Education program, which provides grants to students at those schools. Under the proposed House budget, which is set to be discussed by the full chamber this week, there would be several metrics private universities would have to meet for students to qualify for the grants, including the overall cost of attendance, student retention rate, and graduation rate. Bob Boyd, president of the Independent Colleges and Universities of Florida Association, says private schools shouldn't be treated the same as public universities.
It's hard to use metrics to compare apples to apples because of who we serve. We serve a completely different type of student than the state university does. A freshman at UF is not a freshman at a lot of our institutions. You got to look at that because this creates a pathway for those students.
Boyd says the proposed cuts could impact more than 21,000 students at 15 private colleges and universities in the state. Here in Northeast Florida, there are 3 private schools that are part of that association: Jacksonville University, Edward Waters University, and Flagler College. Well, it's going to be a nice day overall here in Northeast Florida, as we're going to have highs reaching the mid-70s inland, lower 70s along the coast, and we're going to have plenty of sunshine. Lows overnight will get into the mid-50s and we'll have clear skies. The cooler air is going to stick around tomorrow with highs in the mid-70s. It'll be breezy along the coast during the day and into the evening as well. Mostly clear skies tomorrow night, lows in the mid-50s again.
Support for NPR comes from the Skoll Foundation, dedicated to powering social innovators to transform the world. Learn more at skoll.org. And Jarl and Pamela Mohn, focusing on civil liberties, foster youth, public radio, and the arts.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided in part by Baptist Health and North Florida TPO.
Good morning. I'm Ann Schindler, and this is First Coast Connect. Today, Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan navigates the political turbulence created by federal policies, from tariffs to immigration to DOGE. Later in the program, the Phoenix Arts District gets a fresh coat of paint. And the local creator behind a powerful documentary explores generational trauma experienced by children of the Holocaust. But first, we're joined, as we are every month, by Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan. Good morning, Mayor Deegan.
Good morning, Ann. How are you?
I'm good. I feel like I see you more now than when I worked with you.
I know. It's nice,
It's
isn't
good to
it?
have you back. Yes. Mayor, of course, is here to answer your calls and questions live as well. You can reach us at 904-549-2937. You can email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can tag us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, or X at FCC On Air. So, Mayor Deegan, I want to start, if we can, with immigration. You had a difficult decision on an issue that you probably would have preferred not to deal with at all.
You bet.
This was a measure from the city council you chose not to veto. Some would rather you have vetoed.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about what went into that decision from a personal standpoint.
You know, honestly, I didn't want to make an emotional decision. And I think that's obviously your instant reaction is, because I said it. I mean, it is something that, frankly, it's a lane where we do not belong. It's a federal issue. But it's become this huge political football. And there's language in there that, frankly, it just is hurtful to our immigrant community. Folks who are here lawfully, trying to do the best they can to navigate a system that is very, very difficult right now. So, but for me, the very fact that this law did not change one thing beyond the money that was going to the sheriff for his fingerprint machines, which I supported. There was a substitute bill that would have made that the only thing council would have considered. I would have signed that. But I felt like it was the best way to handle the situation for a couple of reasons. One is this law doesn't change anything. There's a state law. There's obviously the federal law, which supersedes everything. And there really is no place for immigration and local law. So I felt like it, frankly, was an effort to draw us into a place where we were having an argument over federal policy when it didn't change the federal policy. And I didn't want that to become a distraction I think, frankly, that was part of the idea. I didn't want it to become a distraction for all of the things that we still need to accomplish in this city. I've said repeatedly, Ann, that I was elected to be the mayor of this city for all the people of this city. So I will come out all day long and say how I feel about that. At the end of the day, I suspect this is going to be an issue that we've already seen the state taken to court this week. I believe there's already been action to halt the state law. And I suspect the same thing will happen in terms of the law here in Jacksonville. We're going to spend all kinds of crazy money trying to defend a law that really doesn't belong in local government. So long and short of it is it's an unnecessary law, and I didn't veto it because I didn't want it to become a talking point for the next however long when it just doesn't change anything beyond federal law.
What do you think would have happened if you had vetoed it? Do you just imagine that you kind of would become a lightning rod for national vitriol over this topic, that it would have started to focus on you and Jacksonville?
Well, if you look at the conversation around it now, that's the effort that is being made, right? That somehow the mayor has flown in the face of no, I haven't done anything. Nothing has changed. The sheriff has had a deal with ICE since 2008 that's ongoing, and nothing has changed because of this. But yes, and I will tell you that the preponderance of the immigrant community that I heard from said, please don't make us a further target by vetoing this bill. I think there was a real concern that Jacksonville would become, ground zero for all of that big argument where we just don't belong, and we've got too much infrastructure and forward motion to make on a variety of topics that really are our lane to get involved in this. But I did want the immigrant community to hear from me that, they are a vibrant and important part of the city, and one that we'll continue to embrace. And I'm distressed by the message from all of this, but it is where we are, Ann. So I'll navigate it as well as I can while keeping the main thing, which is running this city.
We're talking to Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, taking your calls and questions at 904-549-2937. We have a call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead. Tom, are you there? Go ahead. Yep, I just hung up on you. Call back, Tom, if you'd like. Sorry, I couldn't hear you. On another national issue, Mayor Deegan, I want to talk a little bit about tariffs. That's obviously been a huge national headline. It is having all kinds of local impacts on people. I mean, anybody who buys or sells product, anybody who's in a business that has any shipping elements, anybody with the investments. I mean, there's been a lot of impacts, but in terms of the city itself, has the city taken a hit? Are we deeply invested in things, whether it's, our pension fund or JEA or, any of the city agencies? What kind of financial impact are we seeing just from like the investment side of things?
We're seeing the same financial impact everybody's seeing. Obviously, our retirement fund is based in the stock market, but we also own bonds, which are relatively stable right now. They're probably the most stable thing. We invest some in private companies, so it's really those public stock dollars that are most at risk. I think we're down about 5%, a little more than 5%. In terms of our fund right now. So it, just like everybody, we're sort of hoping that.
What does that translate into in terms of?
Translates into, more than $100 million. So right now we are definitely hoping that there is a stabilization there, or at the very least that the market finds its bottom and we figure out, how we're going to proceed. It's really hard to know what the overall impact is going to be until we see how this settles out. It still feels very fluid right now.
And what are your advisors, whether financial or otherwise, telling you either to do, to not do, to whom to kind of bring your concerns and appeal?
Well, I think all we can really do right now is, and we've all been through this. I mean, market volatility is part of any sort of change, and we've seen that. And I think that the big thing is, you don't want to panic. You don't want to go and sell things that are probably going to come back, and it may be an opportunity for us to invest in things that may grow. But at the end of the day, I think that's really the number one thing. It's really the same advice you'd probably get from your portfolio manager of your personal finances, and that is, don't freak. That the market overall over the last 20 years has performed relatively well. and hopefully at some point we'll see a rebound.
What about Jacksport, as a giant shipping entity here? We know they deal with a lot of vehicles, but all kinds of cargo vessels coming in and out of the port.
Yeah.
What are we hearing from that agency about their concerns, their future finances?
Well, obviously they're watching just like the rest of us are to see where all this settles out. But I think the biggest concern right now is ultimately on supply chain issues. But right now, in terms of how the port is actually going to be impacted, what's good for us is that we have a very diversified port. We have a port that not only does imports and exports, but is very heavily involved with military transport and things like that. So there are other things that the port is involved in that will continue to be stable while we're sort of waiting to see how this tariff situation settles out.
I think we have Tom back from the west side.
Sorry about that, Tom.
Tom, can you hear me? I think we're having some phone issues
Uh-oh.
here, unfortunately. Give it another try. Tom, I've got nothing. Hang on a second. We'll see if we can get that remedied. I'm not sure what's going on with the phone right now. So in terms of the tariffs, I mean, are you hearing from anybody in the conversations that you have, whether it's people at the chamber or people in the local business community? Do you hear from anybody that is supportive of these?
I haven't really heard of from experts as such. I have heard from some people that they are willing to wait out and see how all of this plays out and hoping for the best. But I haven't heard from anybody in an expert capacity that thinks that these are going to work out terribly well.
Yeah.
We've looked at the history of tariffs in this country, and they certainly haven't worked out well for us in the past. But at this point, all we can really do here on the local level is hang on and wait to see where it settles and try to make the best investment decisions we can.
Yep. So in terms of your recent legislation, it's called Fairness in Nonprofit Contracting.
Yeah.
And this was something that you kind of went to lengths to say wasn't, I don't know, derived from anything in particular.
No, it wasn't.
But this was a source of controversy over the years in terms of council members having direct connections with nonprofits that were receiving city funds. I wonder if just the elements of this legislation, you could kind of explain to us what your goal is. This is basically something that would, create some requirements for additional disclosure if a city council member or anybody connected to the mayor's office or
Right.
city government in any way is
Yeah.
connected to a nonprofit receiving city money.
Yeah, basically, and the upshot of this is that, we were in a situation where, there are safeguards in place to make sure that the vetting process is what it should be, but council has chosen to waive those requirements, eliminating sort of the checks and balances that are in place with the bidding process and disclosures. They've done it 64 times since 2022. So what we really wanted to do is say, look, what we're really trying to do here is protect both the nonprofit and the council person by saying if a nonprofit has this close relationship with a person that's either in the mayor's office or on council, they need to file an affidavit saying that. And then the council member has to also, be transparent about that relationship. And then it offers other nonprofits an opportunity to come in and say, we can provide that same service. It doesn't keep council from doing what it wants to do at the end of the day if they want to waive that process, but it does require a 2/3 vote if they want to do so, which is just a little bit of a higher bar to get there.
We are talking to Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, and we are hoping to get your calls into the show. We're actually going to take a short break to see if we can remedy what's wrong with our phones, and we'll be back just in a moment. Welcome back. We're here with Donna Deegan on First Coast Connect, taking your calls and questions. I'd actually advise you to send an email right now since our phones are still giving us a little bit of a headache. You can email us at firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. You can also tag us on Facebook or Instagram or X at FCC On Air. And I know that we lost a couple of callers there, so I apologize to that. If you want to try back, we're rebooting our system. You can give it a shot. No guarantees at this point. I'm not really sure if our phones are going to work or not. But I want to move on to a topic about kind of this bill that we were just discussing. The transparency in funding. I thought it was interesting that somebody that you don't often agree with on issues, Rory Diamond, is also in full support. I wasn't sure if there was another piece of legislation that I could find that was the case. You're saying, wait.
Well, he was.
Oh, no.
We heard that, and he was quoted as saying he was in full support and thought it was a great idea, and then completely reversed his position and said that it was not something he would support. So I suspect he was in support until he was asked to not be in support. I don't know.
Right.
I really have no idea.
It was
I have long since given up trying to get into the mind of that particular councilman. But I I think it will be a popular bill with city council. At least I hope it will. Right now it's been deferred. It's been deferred for one cycle, and I think there were just some questions just about the procedurally how it would go. I think it'll be back next cycle. But it is something that has been. It was really on my mind when I came into office, and I think has continued to be something that we have struggled with as a city, and that is the perception that people get special favors, and we don't want that to be the perception either for the nonprofit who's doing wonderful work or for the council person who's just really trying to make sure they're navigating properly. And I'm not suggesting in any way that anything improper was done. I'm simply saying that this is a way to insulate ourselves from that type of criticism and make sure that all the nonprofit community believes that they have an equal shot at some of these projects or monies.
We're going to give it a shot here with Mark in St. Augustine. Mark, can you hear us? Mark, go ahead. Nope. I think we're still having issues, fellas. We have a message from Erica. She emailed, how is it decided where the city's cash incentives go? What is the benefit of a very expensive hotel chain like the Four Seasons receiving a piece of this $74 million?
Well, obviously, at least from my perspective, cash incentives go where you need them the most, where you need to make sure that you get to a point with an industry or a project or a part of town or whatever it is that you believe is a key to the economic advancement of our city. That's really where incentives come in, and so until we get to a point where we have the number of hotels that we need, where we have the number of any number of things, affordable housing projects or you name it. There will be incentives involved in those projects, and the Four Seasons is one of those things that, frankly, when you talk to businesses who are considering moving to Jacksonville, one of the conversations we've had repeatedly when we're over in London talking with various entities who are considering creating, a hub here or a division here, it always comes up. Two things always come up: not enough hotel rooms, not enough high-end hotel rooms, and no direct flight from Jacksonville to Europe. Those are the two things that come up very, very often in those conversations. So I think we need more hotel beds if we want to attract more. If we want to attract more concerts and you name it, other things to Jacksonville, we need more of those hotel beds, and it really is important for business. So I would say, those are some of the reasons I would give for why incentives are still very important until we get to the point where we're just so cooking with gas that we don't need them anymore.
But even when we're talking about somebody who's as kind of well-financed as somebody, either the kind of the man behind the project, Shad Khan, or the chain itself, the Four Seasons, known to be pretty exclusive.
Yeah.
Still in.
Look, these are businesses aren't in business because they give everything away. I think that at the end of the day, sometimes to attract these type of projects, especially when they don't pencil very well, is to offer some incentive. And I just think too we got the same sort of discussion about the stadium. Why should the city put any money for the stadium when Shad Khan has so much money? Well, he's invested, you know, literally tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into the city. That doesn't mean that this very wealthy, successful businessman is going to want to pay for everything. I mean, this is a city-owned property. So I get those arguments to a point, but there is a point at which I say, I don't know how much we're going to ask a particular individual to do simply because they happen to be somebody that has a lot of money.
We have a question, Hank on the north side saying, has the mayor considered purchasing vacant land and putting a tent on it to help the homeless?
Well, no, that's we really have tried to avoid that. We are looking at all kinds of different options in terms of different housing opportunities that we can create, and we are in the process of finding more crisis housing for people, and also are looking at more permanent housing opportunities. But I would, if we possibly can help it, I would like to stay away from tents if we can possibly help it. I'd rather put people in actual structures if that's possible. And we have a plan in place, for that. And I think that we're moving forward nicely on that plan.
What is the state right now? I mean, we know we've talked before about this new state law that requires the city to basically make sure nobody is sleeping outside.
Yeah.
Makes outdoor camping illegal. And so the city has been working with the Jacksonville fire rescue folks.
Yeah. The PATH team, right?
Right, to communicate with people who are on the street to try to get them into some sort of temporary shelter or even permanent shelter. What do we know about the latest interactions of that team in terms of how many people they are dealing with and how many people are having to be passed along to the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and ultimately arrested?
Well, what we know is that in a relative sense, the number of arrests are far lower than the number of people that are being contacted. So since late November, they've engaged with more than 560 people. The PATH team has some multiple engagements. And we've seen quite an extensive shelter bed expansion. So Trinity Rescue, I've got the numbers with me. Trinity Rescue, 44 beds currently full. City Rescue, 26 beds full. Salvation Army has 26 beds that are going to be coming online soon. We're expecting a signed contract with them any day now. But the other thing, Ann, that we're really excited about is because you remember council took out a bunch of the money that we had asked for this process, and we really do believe that providing this housing and creating the wraparound services are critically important. And we're contracting with the beach now, too, to do some work for them with them. We have $1 million in emergency money that's coming from HUD. And so we've been working with HUD. They've approved a plan that we put in front of them for use of that money, but it will still require legislation that we're going to be bringing before council. And that would help us by bringing in 6 new case managers. For every one shelter, you'll have Sulzbacher, Trinity, City Rescue, Salvation Army, Beaches, and JFRD PATH, 6 total. So this is, we think, critical to have somebody who's going to connect people, not only tell them they need to leave the streets, but to literally connect them to the wraparound services that they need to make sure we can get them back on a path to being productive citizens. And we're also going to be working with Mission House at the beach on the Homeward Bound program, which I think, as you know, is getting people back to where they may have come from, who have been either placed here or who found their way here and would like to get back home. Also, rapid rehousing program, a database expansion, so we really understand the gravity of the problem. These are all things that will go into this bill. But beyond that, we're also discussing the potential of expanding outreach and bed capacity in our future budgets as well. So it's the $1 million won't get us terribly far, but it will at least allow us to get some of that case management in place that can get people the services they need.
What do we know about what impacts, if any, the jail is seeing from this population? Do we have figures on how many people have been arrested or remain in custody?
I don't today. I'm happy to get that for you, but I don't know how many have been arrested or are still there. Hopefully, if they are arrested, they're very quickly, brought to the services that they need. But sometimes it is just impossible to get people to leave the street. And the law says we have to do that. So if they absolutely simply will not, respond to the PATH team, then that's the job of the sheriff's office.
Just a reminder that our phones are not working today, but if you'd like to send a message or a question to the mayor, you can email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org, or you can tag us on Facebook or Instagram or X at FCC On Air. We've got a message from Susan on Facebook on a topic that I'm sure we'd like to talk to, asking, is Terrence Freeman's idea to invite Governor DeSantis to scrutinize our city the worst idea a city council member has proposed? Just to frame that, Terrence Freeman, city council member, just yesterday, I believe, announced that he wanted to invite the governor's DOJ team to town to basically audit city finances. A number of smaller municipalities have made that ask after the governor said he thought it would be a good idea to do those local audits. But this would be probably the largest ask of that kind. What are your thoughts?
Look, we received a recent Florida DOJ letter asking us a few questions about our financial history, which we responded to last week. But the truth is, it's in our charter in the city of Jacksonville that we have an independent external auditor, an audit done on an annual basis. And council just, I think, last week approved that process again for this year. So it's hard to understand why he would want to ask our city government to do something twice. So really wasting our taxpayer dollars by saying, hey, let's have these folks go back through this process again. I mean, we are working very hard in our lean process to make sure that we are making sure that our processes make sense and that our people can spend more time working for the people of Jacksonville as opposed to all these other things that they have to do.
Remind us what lean does too. I mean, this is something we haven't talked about, I don't think, on this.
Yeah, lean has generally been in the business community but for more than a year now. We have had lean teams for government, which is just another process that's based on that lean process in business to help you create efficiencies in government. And so we've been able to save hundreds of thousands of efficiency hours, which will eventually obviously translate into a lot of money so that we can free our people up to do their jobs for the citizens better. That is our way of creating efficiency in government. Eventually, we may see that we have a lot of vacancies in the city. We may be able to look at that and say, you know what, if we haven't filled those vacancies in X number of years, perhaps we don't need those positions. We're not looking at getting rid of anybody, but we're looking at trying to make sure that we are being as efficient as possible. As I said, when I came in, sometimes you look at a department like permitting and you say, you know what, we need a few more people in permitting because we're not getting that job done. And you look at another department that hasn't filled positions in a couple of years and say, gosh, perhaps we don't need those positions anymore to be sitting there taking up budget space. So that's the process of lean. And we've got, I think, over 100. At the end of the process, we'll have over 100 green belts, which are people that pass a very stringent school, if you will, on how to create the lean process in their departments. And people are very excited about the process. It's been very helpful so far.
Terrence Freeman, in his announcement, saying by voluntarily inviting the governor's DOJ team to examine Jacksonville's books, we're embracing accountability and actively seeking ways to trim government waste, improve efficiency, and pass savings along to taxpayers. He's adding that taxpayers deserve confidence that their money is being spent wisely.
That's what the independent audit is for. But I also want to point out, I think this is really interesting, that before I came into office, the city was 3 years behind on filing its annual audits. 3 years behind. And we're now caught up and delivering on time. So look, the process has definitely been fraught in the past. It's in a good place. I think when we changed systems, it caused some problems. But at the end of the day, that's what the charter says we should do, have an independent auditor come in, which we have now contracted for. So why would we do that twice, I guess? I guess it sounds to me like a more political, play, honestly. That's what it sounds like to me. But I'm getting used to that. I feel like we're going to get pitched one of those a week now for the next couple of years. And that's okay. But I don't think, whatever happens, we're more than confident in our books. But I don't understand why we would ask our folks to duplicate efforts that are already happening with an independent auditor.
Got a question from Kimberly from the West Side saying, what level of accountability exists currently to account for dollars allocated to JSO for closing cases in major crimes, special victims, et cetera? And why isn't this concern coming to the forefront. Why are council members not concerned about those committing violent or dangerous crimes on our streets? Is the jail not full enough already? I think connecting that to the concern over, quote, illegal immigrants.
Yeah, I don't really know how to respond to that. I think people, and it's been interesting because I belong to an organization called the U.S. Conference of Mayors, where mayors from all over the country try to connect on best practices and ways to move forward on various issues. And in just about every one of those municipalities, the relationship between the mayor's office and the police department is different. And here we have a consolidated government. We have two completely different entities, and the legislature has created a lot of autonomy for the sheriff's office.
Sure.
So really, the sheriff is responsible for his own budget, how he spends his money, where he wants to move it around, how he wants to do it, and that's something over which the mayor's office has absolutely no say. So I think that would really be a better question for the sheriff.
I mean,
I'm not sure what processes are in place.
The
at sheriff's
legislature
office.
just a year or two ago created additional autonomy, allowing
Yes.
that even after the budget is approved by the city, that the sheriff can then kind of take the money in his budget and move it wherever he would like.
That's exactly right.
Without any additional oversight or permission.
That's exactly right. And I will say, I do think that this sheriff has spent a lot more time trying to talk with the public about why he makes the decisions that he makes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that that he would probably welcome that discussion.
Tom on Facebook saying, has the mayor begun planning for the coming recession and the worsening severe weather we are seeing?
Well, obviously we're always trying to plan ahead. Nobody wants to see a recession. And I don't know that we know that we're going to see that yet, but of course we're always we always have to plan with the budget numbers that we see coming, and we were already looking at probably a challenging couple of years just in terms of what we're getting in property tax, given the fact that we've had so much shrinkage in commercial occupancy since COVID.
Yeah.
So all of those buildings, or many of those buildings, have come back to say, hey, we need a restructure of our taxes. So it is certainly something that we're constantly looking forward to. We have to certain things we have to pay for, and we'll continue to make sure that we have enough money to do that. But we'll always try to prioritize what brings the best return for our citizens. That's what we always do. And that's why we're laser focused on things like affordable housing, because we know that's a huge impact. But what we're able to do there will be largely, determined by what we have.
How different is planning for financial resiliency compared to planning for environmental resiliency and, making sure that obviously there's costs associated with the latter in a huge amount, but they both, I guess, require forecasting into a somewhat uncertain.
Well, yeah,
future.
but I can't remember the exact number now, but in any event, no matter what you're talking about, the old adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure is true. So anything that you can do to prevent something from happening, or to make sure that you are well positioned for that thing happening, will save you a lot of money on the back end. But I would say it's different, especially right now, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of interest at the state and federal level to fund a lot of resilience efforts. And that's where we get a lot of our money for those things. So in that way, it's harder. It's harder than the budget planning.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to leave it there. Jacksonville Mayor Donna Deegan, thank you so much for making time for us today. And sorry to everybody that was on the phone that couldn't get through. We'll get that remedied as soon as we can.
I'm sorry about that too, Ann, but thank you for having me and letting me ramble on for a bit.
It was a pleasure. Good to see you. Up next, a documentary exploring how children of the Holocaust and their children carry the trauma and resilience of their parents' past. Well, a locally produced documentary explores the enduring trauma of the Holocaust as experienced by survivors' children. Joining me to discuss the stories of remembering and resilience is Stacy Goldring, creator of the documentary Traces: Voices of the Second Generation. Good morning, Stacy.
Good morning. How are you, Ann?
I'm good. So people will obviously recognize your name as our book club host. from First Coast Connect Book Club. But you are also, well, you're involved in a lot of things. This film has been a passion project and a years-long endeavor. Tell us a little bit about how you got started on the film.
Sure. So, just to expand on the description of Traces, it does explore the trauma, but really it reveals the strength of survivorship. And the trail of Traces began over 10 years ago when I started a writing workshop for the children of Holocaust survivors right here in Jacksonville. And I recognized very quickly after I started the workshop that not only were we there to document their parents' story for the historical record, for their own personal legacy, but they had a story to tell too, because the Holocaust did not end when the camps were liberated. I learned very quickly that the Holocaust was reverberating in households during, while we in the U.S., we were going crazy over the Beatles and Elvis, and Vietnam was happening, and Watergate and Lawrence Welk Show and Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom, and we're doing all these 50s, 60s, 70s things. There were people in America who were still dealing with the trauma and learning to be resilient from what happened during history's darkest period. So I decided to produce a documentary based on the stories I heard in the workshop. And that's what Traces is, and it premiered here in Jacksonville 2 years ago. And as we wrap up our worldwide tour, which has been going on now for 2 years, I'm so pleased to say that we will be screening at Jacksonville University on the 16th next week. This is all in commemoration of Holocaust Remembrance Day week that's happening in a few weeks. But I'll also be taking the film to Israel and making a tour of the country there, and screening in Jerusalem, Beersheba, Haifa, Rihanna, Tel Aviv. It's going to be everywhere. And I honestly can't get my head around it, Anne, because when you think about what a country like that represents and how it came, how it's evolved over, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, and now people who had suffered so much, and their story is now coming back to home in a way, and it's you can tell I get very emotional about it. But what's universal about the film is that the stories are told, they're stories of family. So whoever you are and whatever your background, we're all either mothers, fathers, brothers, the crazy aunt, I'm pointing to myself. We're all related, and we all have stories, and we all inherit from our parents' upbringing. We all make choices on what to do with that and how to live with what, how we're brought up and how we express that growing up in everything we do. And that's what's so beautiful about the film, is it's a story of family. You can see yourself in these people that are in it.
When you were collecting these stories, I mean, for the film, but even before that, when you were doing the writer workshop, were you seeing like commonalities in the experience, or did they have very different types of?
So that is a great question. And I'm going to answer, I used to be a journalist, so here's the awful answer. Yes and no. The yes is, what I noticed is that you and me, we have a range of emotions. And I kind of know you, and I'm thinking your emotions are like mine. They're like a big range, right? What I noticed in the workshop was, look, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a social scientist, I'm none of those things. I'm a writer. What I noticed is there's a truncated range of emotions, because in a survivorship household, Anne, you can never be too happy, because what do you have to be happy about, right? Look at what, why do you want to celebrate a birthday? Like, everything is measured, and, there's this backdrop of all this loss. Then again, how could you ever be sad? You're alive. You have 2 legs. You have 2 arms. We're dealing with 10 fingers. Too bad you didn't get into UF. You're going to cry about that? Your boyfriend broke up with you. What's your problem? Put a smile on your face. You only got straight A's. Well, why couldn't you've gotten A pluses? So there, you're always measured, right?
With that kind of traumatic experience as backdrop.
Yes. So how does that manifest in these voices heard on film? There's no narration. This is all the voice. So you don't have to listen to me at all. They're all voices of individuals who are from Florida, right? So it's very local in a way. My entire crew is local. It's all local talent. And what we hear are their stories of growing up and upbringing, the choices they make in their lives. And it's the best film ever made on planet Earth, I just have to say.
This is going to be, as you said, in late April, between the 23rd and the 28th, doing a number of screenings across Israel. And just briefly, you're going to be there for all of those, participating in these panel discussions.
Yes. So if you know anyone in Israel, please tell them to come. They can go to the website, tracesfilm.com, and see the lineup of where we'll be. And what's interesting is I'm going in Israel. I will be... there'll be a panel discussion afterwards with the name of the organization is Amcha, which basically stands for this organization in Israel that supports all survivors and the second generation, because the second generation, they are now moved into this position of being a primary source because their parents are no longer here to tell the story. Imagine having to tell your most personal stories about growing up, right? Even to your best friends, it's something that you talk about is so personal. Imagine getting in front of a camera like this, like with the lights, everything, and just sharing that on film. These are really brave individuals. So the stories that are told are inspirational. They give us hope. And what we need now more than ever is hope. This is a very different film than it was before October 7th. Oh. And that's what I've learned about storytelling on film, is that it changes depending on what's happening in the world. So it's become more and more of a beacon of hope and resilience. And that's what Traces is.
It screens locally April 16th at 10 in the morning at the Terry Concert Hall at JU. Stacey Goldring, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Ann.
All right, up next, transforming industrial spaces into public art.
The Lightner Museum in St. Augustine presents an exhibition from British artist Paul Scott, American Scenery and Souvenirs, Transferware by Paul Scott, opening April 24th and running through October 27th. Details at lightnermuseum.org. Life South Community Blood Centers, providing blood and patient services to the local hospitals, serving patients in this community. Donating blood with Life South helps save lives. More at lifesouth.org to find a blood drive near you.
On the next Fresh Air, some answers to the question many Democrats and Republicans are still asking: how Trump beat Biden, Harris, and the odds in the wildest campaign in history. That's the subtitle of the new book Uncharted by our next guest, Chris Whipple, author of a previous book about White House chiefs of staff. We'll talk about Trump's chief. Join us.
Today at noon on WJCT News 89.9.
President Trump promised to lower grocery prices, but he can't. Truth is, grocery prices are determined by things such as shipping, which are beyond a president's control.
They're going through consolidation, so that's going to have an impact on what retailers are going to be able to use to transport their products that they're purchasing from their wholesalers to the store.
That's on the next On Point.
Today at 11 on WJCT News 89.9.
Young people are concerned about climate change. A survey last year found that more than half of Americans 16 to 25 are very or extremely worried. But many are turning that anxiety into action, and they're doing it right at home. We hear their stories next time on 1A.
Today, starting at 10 on WJCT News 89.9.
Welcome back. Well, artists from around the region will transform the 14th Street walls of the Phoenix Arts District into signature works of art this weekend. Here to tell us about the upcoming mural jam is Emily Moody, Vice President and Chief Experience Officer at the Phoenix Art District. Good morning, Emily.
Good morning. How are you? Thanks so much for having us on.
Nice to have you back on, both of you. Elena Olander, artist and creator of the Jacks Wall Project. Good morning, Elena.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. So, first of all, what role do the murals around Jacksonville and just public art in general, what role do they play in community?
I mean, for me, I look at the accessibility of art for different people who might not feel comfortable walking through the doors of a museum or a gallery, but we're kind of meeting them at their level right in the neighborhood. And it's so special when we're doing these big events to be able to have residents driving by, walking by, thanking us for beautifying and uplifting and bringing color and vibrancy to their neighborhoods. So that's really what it's about for me, is making that art accessible for people.
What the Jacks Wall project itself, Elena, how has it evolved over the last few years?
It's been an organic growth process. I think I kind of fell into the role, and the community really lets us know what they need rather than me showing up and being like, yeah, this is what we need. They tell us, and then it's about providing space. So Phoenix Arts District has been a great resource in providing space for artists to have the freedom to build community and to build culture and to give a voice to artists that are helping to shape Jacksonville's culture.
And you are an artist. Obviously, we've had you on before talking about your work in other settings. A lot of your stuff is smaller pieces, and I'm curious how that translates for you when you're working on, because you're going to be part of the mural project as well. You're going to be.
I will be
If we have
mostly
time.
admin. I'd love to paint a wall. And last year I thought that I could do everything, and actually bandwidth is not enough to do it all. But we were successful and we learned a lot last year. And if there's a world where I can hit a wall afterwards,
Okay.
I just want to give
The walls are always
opportunity.
open for her. So
Sure.
we're a
Thank
small
you.
but mighty team.
Right. And so who are the walls open to? I mean, how do you you accept applications? How do you vet the people? What are you looking for in artists when they want to do murals?
So this application process, we closed it last Friday, but it was open through a Google form, which was available on our website. Also, Elena's done an amazing job of curating an Instagram chat group that has a ton of amazing Jacksonville artists, but that's a platform where everyone can kind of share out opportunities on grants, painting around the country,
Oh,
and
cool.
then we've just pushed it out via social media and our kind of grassroots marketing campaigns that we're
What's
able
the
to do.
handle on that? The Instagram.
It's at Jack's Wall Project and at Phoenix Jacks, PHXJAX.
Very cool. And so public art is a big part of the district there, which is, moving along. I saw that the Naked Kitchen folks are full steam ahead now on
They
their.
got their permits, so they're going to be rocking and rolling. We're delivering their open shell for them hopefully by the end of this month. So we're looking for maybe a 3 to 4 month process for their build out, and hope to have them open at the end of the year.
But how big of a deal is the kind of the vibrancy of the space and having the murals and having the visible art kind of define that territory, even if you're not going inside?
I mean, for me, I see people on a daily basis coming through and interacting with the art, whether it's a photo shoot, video shoot, senior portraits, like
Oh, yeah.
last week that so people are seeking out these interesting spaces where they know are just filled with art and vibrancy.
Yeah, and this, we should say, the 14th Street walls are basically on between Market and Hubbard Street, roughly.
Yes, so the Phoenix Arts and Innovation District is an 8.3 acre development, but we are focusing this specific project around our art park space, which is along 14th Street, like you said, between Hubbard and Market Streets. And then we also will be, some of our featured artists are going to be highlighted on our Legacy Studios building, which has actually never been touched. It's still raw brick. But we've taken down a couple of buildings over the past few weeks. And so we really want to be able to offer a new space for artists to be able to paint.
So the event is on April 19th from 10 to 6 on Saturday. What will people see other than people painting? I mean, what can they expect from the district and from other things that are around?
We're just going to have music going. Naked Kitchen will be there for food and beverage available for purchase. We want people to walk around and chat with the artist, and this is a great time to really kind of be immersed in what's happening. Watch novice artists are welcome to come and test out one area and get their hands on a can of spray paint. And we want people to be able to utilize what we've got going on in terms of all of the offerings.
And I guess I just have to ask, since I have you on, Emily, Wolf and Cub downtown has closed. Can you give us any update on when a new or different Wolf and Cub might appear?
It's very exciting, and Wolf and Cub is not officially announcing just yet, but I'm sure you could probably deduce where I would like to move towards the end of the year.
Should it be possible?
Yes. So as soon as I have a construction timeline, I cannot wait to announce because it's going to be bigger and better 2.0.
Excellent. Well, it is so nice to have you both here. Emily Moody, Elena Olander, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for the support of the arts and culture scene in Phoenix, Jax.
100%. Thank you for listening. Join us tomorrow when we talk to a local Head Start program about fighting the cycle of poverty at a time of deep uncertainty about the future of federal funding. I'm Ann Schindler. You've been listening to First Coast Connect on WJCT News 89.9.
Support for First Coast Connect is provided by Baptist Health and the North Florida TPO.
Baptist Health is a proud supporter of First Coast Connect. Baptist Health, committed to building a healthier community for all of us. More info at 202-4YOU or baptistjax.com. The North Florida TPO is dedicated to transportation planning, funding, clean fuels, and new technologies for a vibrant, resilient, and connected region. More information available at northfloridatpo.com. DuPont Counseling Group is a team of therapists, psychiatrists, and counselors available to help with life's mental health challenges. Everyone needs help sometimes. More information can be found at jacksonvillecounseling.org.